Welcome to session number 9, Pricing Property. You know, I really believe this will either be the shortest session of the group for you or the longest, and that really depends upon where you are mentally when it comes to pricing property. There's 3 issues on pricing property that you have to get clear on as we start this session. If you're selling real estate today in a rising market, meaning the market's good, it's strong, it's a seller's market, prices are going up on a regular basis, then pricing property is really not a real big issue, and this is a short session for you. You'll probably just turn it off and go to the next session, session number 10. If you're in a flat market, meaning the prices have not changed a lot, this pricing property session is very important for you because we both know with the amount of homes for sale in most marketplaces in a flat market, the ones that are priced right sell first. If you're involved in a declining market, which there's certain parts of the country are always in a declining market, then this is a critically important session and one that you'll probably want to watch a dozen times. So I think your response, a lot of it depends on the type of market you're in. Now, the people in a rising market are going to say, pricing, who cares? You throw a price on the property, it sells, everybody's happy, and you get out of there as fast as you can. There's multiple offers all the time. Big deal, Mike. Who cares about your thoughts? Well, the truth is, even in a rising market, if you take parts of Southern California, Southern Florida, some of the real hotbeds as the middle of this particular decade is taking place, we look at those markets and say, you can't go wrong. You buy real estate, it appreciates instantaneously. You can't go wrong. You list it, it sells instantaneously. You can't lose in this deal. But the truth is, even in a rising market, there are homes that are not selling. There are homes that are taking extended periods of time. There are some agents that don't have any common sense and some sellers that have a lot of greed. And we don't want you to have those listings sitting there 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 months. There are expired listings in a rising market. So pricing is always the issue. Guys and gals, it doesn't matter what the product is. Doesn't matter what the service is, price is always an issue with people. As long as we have human beings in the buying and selling equation, pricing is an issue. So therefore, we always have to look at this pricing issue carefully. First decision, are you in a rising market? Are you in a flat market? Are you in a declining market? When you make that decision and know where you are, then you can take advantage of that situation. Personal belief, you're so much better off as a real estate person working in a very flat market or declining market. Let me show you why, okay? If you have prices going straight up, it doesn't take a lot of talent as a real estate agent to get listings, get them sold. When prices are going straight down, it takes a lot of talent on behalf of the agent to have the transaction work and go together. So we know that net bottom line, this is an issue in a rising or a declining market. Now, if you take a look at where you are today again, and you say to yourself, okay, we're in a rising market. I have to learn to price homes so I don't have them expiring. I have to learn to price homes so they're competitive. I have to learn to price homes so they get them sold. If I'm in a declining market, the exact same things take place. If I'm in a flat market, guess what? You better learn to perform as quickly as you can at the highest rate. So let's take a look now at this whole issue of pricing. And I wrote down a simple thought. Our success in getting listings sold starts with price, ends with price. The sooner we price them right, the faster it sells. The smoother your business runs, the happier your clients are, the more referrals that you get long term. There's a lot in that sentence. So let me go back through it again. Our success in getting listings sold starts with price, ends with price. The sooner we price it right, the faster it sells. The smoother your business runs, the happier your clients are, and the more referrals you get. So to help you in this whole issue of pricing, there's a couple things that you have to do. First of all, I recommend all the time, to become an expert at pricing, you have to learn to preview properties, okay? I mean, you have to preview properties. At some point, you have to spend time knowing the marketplace, knowing what the products are, knowing what the homes are for sale, knowing the price ranges, knowing the sizes, the dimensions, the conditions of property. The better the listing agent, the more time you spend previewing property to become an expert at neighborhoods so you can price them right. But at the same time, it's real important that you have a very strong knowledge of the statistics that go on in your area. Now, by statistics, let me go back over to the whiteboard. I'll show you a couple thoughts here that are very, very, very important for you. because stats help a lot in pricing, both in a declining and or a rising market. See, for example, let's say that you're in a flat or declining market, and you walk in on a listing presentation, and you're trying to list the property, for example, for $350,000, and they're saying, no, we want $450,000. Well, let's face it, that's a huge difference in price. A smart agent who is prepared can walk in and say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, let's talk about pricing for just a minute. Okay? Today, we have 2,400 real estate agents in our local board of realtors that are actively selling real estate. Today, as we speak, as we look at listing your property, we have approximately 4,000 homes that are for sale. We have a large inventory today. Buyers have choices. Now, it's not uncommon that a seller will stop and say, wait a minute, we thought the market was hot. The market is hot, but there's a lot of inventory, as there always is. Today, we're running, for example, 400 homes sold per month. So if we just stop here and don't list another home for sale, it's going to take 10 months to sell the existing inventory. But I'd like to ask you folks a question. Which homes do you think are selling first? The ones that are priced right or below the market, okay, or the ones that are way high priced above the market? We both know the answer, the ones that are priced right below the market. So we have a 10-month inventory. The problem, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we're listing about 400 new homes for sale per month. So therefore, the truth is, if we list your home at this side of the equation, is it going to be on the upside or downside of the price? You and I have to admit it's on the upside. Is it going to sell faster or slower based upon that price? On the slower side. So if it takes 4, 6, 8 months to sell, is that going to make you unhappy? Well, yes, because we have to be moved in 90 days. Well, if you have to move to 90 days, based upon the statistics of the market, we have to go more on this side than on this side. Wouldn't you agree? Now, unless the seller is completely out of line in their thinking, unless they have no clue at all, okay, what's going on, a very persuasive set of statistics and arguments like that is going to persuade them to list it at a price that's realistic. Now, here's the challenge you face. You come in armed with a good presentation. You take our scripts, which you have on the script cards. You take those scripts, you take the pricing scripts, and you go through them verbatim. Then you have all the stats to back it up. You have the energy, the enthusiasm, and you're really good, and then you run into this objection. Another agent said they could get us $450,000. See, this is the interesting part about pricing to me, because this is that part where we have to make some big decisions. Now, the decisions revolve around the fact of who you are as a real estate person, who you're going to become, and what kind of reputation you want to have in the marketplace, and what type of number of transactions you want to do. If you're going to be a high-volume salesperson, you can't buy into what they're saying. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I'm going to recommend a price of $350,000 on your property. And they come right back and say, but you know, we had Agent George here, and George said he could get us $450,000, and he was just as sure that he could get $450 as you are that we should list it at $350. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, did George have all the statistics I just showed you? Well, no, but he had enough other thoughts for us. Great. So what you're saying then is you don't believe the statistics that I've shown you. No, we believe them, but Mike, you know, our home is nicer, it's prettier, it's in a better neighborhood, better condition, etc., etc., etc. Well, watch. This is where you as a salesperson has to draw a line in the sand. I mean, guys and gals, believe me when I tell you, this is where we separate, okay, those that are going to be successful and those that are not. This is the moment of truth right here, because you have to make a decision. Do you want to take it at that price or someplace in between? The challenge that most agents have is because they don't prospect, which they don't have enough leads, which they don't have enough appointments, which they have to take it at that high price at that moment. The stronger the agent, the more confidence you have, the better prepared you are, the more apt you are to say, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, based upon what you're telling me, I can't be of service to you at this time at that price, and you stand up and walk away. Now, some of you will say, Mike, do you realize that that listing is eventually going to sell probably for $375,000 to $400,000 and you're not going to get the commission? Right. Let's go back to the board. Guys and gals, if that thing's on the market 4, 6, 8 months and you have the listing, is that the transaction you want to be involved in? Can you imagine the headaches you're going to experience over a 6-month period of time with that seller? If they're giving you that much problem now, what's it going to be like in 6 months? See, you got to make a decision. So the real challenge, I believe, in pricing property is your ability to take a stand and to make a decision. Now watch. I wrote down the following. If you're a new agent in the marketplace or a new agent, pricing will become your biggest problem. And if you preview property and study the scripts that we give you, at least you have a chance to compete. Now, at the same time, I believe we have to understand, and I know you know what I'm going to say next, we have to understand the seller's perspective, okay? They don't want to hear that their house is worth less than what they think it's worth. They certainly don't want to hear that another house, which may have been bigger and better, has sold for more than they could sell for. They don't want to hear that they can't have what they want to have. So therefore, it's your ability to present logically and emotionally simultaneously what you have to say. That's a very logical presentation that we just showed them. I mean, you can't deny the facts. 2,400 agents, 4,000 homes for sale. 400 sell per month, 400 new listings. If we are at a standstill, it could take 10 to 12 months to sell your home. Can you afford to wait? They say no. Very logical. On an emotional basis, watch, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, you have to understand. We can wait to get you your $450,000. But if it takes a year, can you afford to wait a year when you said you have to be in your new home in less than 90 days? So part of this whole process, okay, is having the confidence in yourself to take the materials you have and present it in a way that could cause you to lose. Now, you're going to lose listings for a lot of reasons. You'll be outpriced, you'll be outmarketed, you'll be outcommissioned, you'll be outbonded. Okay? Somebody else will build rapport. Somebody will just simply not tell them the truth about what's going on. You're going to lose listings. Now, here's the catch. You're going to lose more listings because of pricing and commission than anything else. You can learn to handle the commission objection by building higher value into what you do. But you're going to lose listings for pricing, and then many times there's not a thing you can do except draw the line in the sand and make a decision as to which way you want to go. I am telling you from personal experience, if you keep listing properties at prices that are completely out of line with the marketplace, it's only a matter of time before you're going to go bankrupt financially and mentally in this business. You're not going to want to take listings if you keep doing this to yourself. So you need to draw a line in the sand and take a stand. I wrote down a thought. The hardest part about pricing is telling them the truth. No matter how uncomfortable it becomes, no matter how much you're inclined not to hurt their feelings, guys and gals, you've got to tell them the truth. If they want to wait 10 months, fine, but then do you want the listing? Okay? Do you want that listing? How motivated are they to go ahead and work with you and you take the professional advice that you're offering? I had a salesperson say to me one day, he said, I looked at the seller and said, hey, you're paying me for my advice. I'm not paying you for yours, so pay attention. And the seller kind of said, okay. Was kind of shocked and signed a contract. Well, that's probably going to the extreme of the truth. But see, if you sit there and say to yourself, I need this listing, and I got to get this listing, I need this commission, I got to get this thing closed. Well, now think about that. You've listed it at a price that you know is too high. Is it really going to sell fast? Is it really going to close quickly? Are you going to get paid very quickly? The answers to all three questions are no. So the truth is you're hurting yourself before you start. So I want you to think about an exercise that you can do to help you with this whole pricing issue. Many years ago, I sat down with an agent from the Midwest, a gal named Debbie Nagel. And Debbie was a powerful agent. I mean, one of the first people in the country, and this is back 10, 15 years ago, that was doing 300 transactions a year in Kansas City, Kansas. Debbie carried an enormous inventory. Usually carried at least 100 listings at all time. So one day Debbie and I are chatting, and she and I were concerned because the truth was the inventory was killing her financially. Now you say, well, gosh, 100 listings at all times, man, how can that kill you? Well, because of the enormous amount of costs it takes to cover and to carry that inventory. I mean, just the signs and the lock boxes alone, okay? 100 plus listings at all times. I mean, watch, how many do you have right now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? And if you're buying your own signs and lock boxes, you know what your expense is. Take that to the level of 100 listings at all times. And somebody has to put them in, somebody has to maintain them, somebody has to take them out. I mean, it's expensive. So what I did, and I want to go to the whiteboard now and show you what I did with Debbie, is I put together for Debbie a little cost analysis on what it costs her to take listings that are overpriced. Because when you're like Debbie, who's one of these great agents, or you take a Joan Pate, one of the fabulous agents, take a Lucy Ham, one of the great agents, a Karen Bernardi, great agent. So many of these agents you've met through our training that list property in enormous volumes. When you take a look at these kinds of people, what you'll discover is they do have large inventories, but the catch is to keep them moving all the time. So Debbie's inventory, she had 100 listings, and she was probably having an average of 20, 25 sales a month, which in itself is huge, but look at how many of her listings were always left, and then she was always adding 20 to 25 more listings to that a month to keep this inventory what it was. So here's what I did. I said, Debbie, let's figure out what it costs you to list a property. She goes, what do you mean? I said, well, let's figure out the cost of listing property. So I said, Debbie, how many hours of prospecting do you think you invest in the average listing? She goes, well, truthfully, it's only about 1.5 hours. I said, great. I said, Debbie, how many hours of preparation go into the average listing before you go take the listing itself? She goes, well, I probably spend 1 hour in preparation. I said, great. I said, how much time driving over to the property, making the presentation, and driving back to the property is involved? She goes, well, it's probably 1.5 hours. I said, great. And then when you get back, you have to have some administrative work done to get the sign put up, to get the listing in MLS, to make up the flyer. How much is involved? She goes, well, probably another hour. I said, great. So I said, I got 1.5, and 1.5 is 3, 4. You got 5 hours invested just to take the listing. And you're being conservative, right? She goes, right. I said, good. What do you think you actually earn per hour? Now, her average sales price was very low in Kansas City, Kansas, the mid-'80s. And I think we came out that she was earning someplace around $125 per hour. I said, okay, Debbie, to get a listing at $125 per hour times 5 hours, you're going to spend about $750 of whatever commission you earn just securing the listing, right? She goes, I never thought of that. I said, so if your average commission check is $2,000, when you take the cost of securing a listing, your actual cost is $750. Well, she said, it's just my time. I said, hey, wait a minute. You don't have anything else to sell but your time. You don't have a product to sell. You don't have widgets you sell. Well, you have you to sell. So therefore, you are the product, $750. So if your commission is $2,000 and I take away $750, okay, what have I got left? About $1,250 of potential profit. She goes, well, I never thought of that. I said, well, then let's take second phase. What does it cost you to service a listing before it sells? And she goes, well, I don't think it costs much at all. I said, well, let's figure it out. Servicing a listing. I said, Debbie, how long is your average home on the market? She said, about 3 months. I said, okay. In that 3 months, I said, how much time do you think you actually spend servicing the listing? She goes, I don't spend that much time. You know, maybe I'll spend 2 hours a month. I said, okay, 2 hours, okay, per month, okay? And you multiply that times 125 is $250. She goes, right. I said, okay. And you have a sign and a lockbox. And if you amortize the sign and the lockbox out, you don't probably spend a lot, but let's say you spend $50. She goes, okay. I know that you're going to make up some flyers and do some advertising because everybody always does. So let's say, do you think you spend on advertising and marketing, etc., you're spending $300 per listing? Well, she goes, probably $200 per listing. I said, okay. What are the servicing costs you have? She goes, that's about it. I said, okay, we're not going to count MLS fees and so forth. So now you got $450 invested in servicing and it hasn't sold yet. She goes, right. And you got $750 invested in securing it. She goes, right. I said, well, that's $1,200 now out of your $2,000 is spent and you haven't even been paid yet. She goes, well, no, I haven't spent the money. I said, Debbie, if you're a business person and not a real estate agent, you actually have churned or spent the money in your time. So now you've got, in this case, $1,200 invested in securing and servicing before it actually sells. Debbie, what if we play the same game again? She goes, what do you mean? I said, well, all right, the listing finally sells. She goes, yeah, most of my listings sell. I don't have a lot of expireds. I said, okay, it finally sells. Now, what is your cost of getting that thing closed? She goes, well, I don't think it costs much. I said, okay, probably doesn't. I said, all right, your average pending period is what? She goes, 90 days. I said, okay, great. And in that 90 days, how much time do you spend on that transaction? She goes, well, maybe I spend 3 hours a month. I said, okay, 3 hours times 125. I said, now you have another, what, $450 invested. I said, any other costs at all? She goes, well, I mean, I probably spend some time. I said, well, let's leave it at that. Now I've got $1,200 to secure it and to service it, and I got $450 to close it, so you've got $1,650 invested in a listing, and you're wondering why you're not making a lot of profit? Debbie, now think this one through for just a minute. You got a $2,000 commission, $1,600 is already spent in real business terms before you start. I said, so let's do this. What if you priced every one right? Could you cut all these numbers down by at least 2/3? She said, absolutely. I said, well, here's a great aha. Try pricing them right. I said, now do you want the really good news or bad news, Debbie? She said, all right, what's the bad news? What if it doesn't sell? You've still invested all the money and now you get no commission. So you lose the $2,000 and you still spent the $1,600, so $3,600 of real money and time is gone. And the listing didn't sell. Debbie, listen to me. You can't afford to take an overpriced listing ever again. And any listing you have that's overpriced, you have to go back and give it back to the seller or get a price reduction. Do you understand? Well, quite honestly, guys and gals, for several days, okay, I think Debbie was almost in a state of shock. Terrific lady and a great agent. But I think I caught her. It was like going bang, bang, bang. I hit her too many times too fast, and it was shocking. But I've had the same conversation with people like Gladys Blum and Karen Bernardi and Lucy Hammond, all these unbelievable listing agents all over North America, the people that list more property by mistake than some agents ever list on purpose. And once we go through the exercise of the cost of getting, securing, servicing, and getting it sold, you can see then that pricing is critical. Because the higher the price, the longer it's on the market, the more expensive it is for you in terms of your commission. Agents wonder why they don't have any money. There's nothing left by the time they get finished. And then if you do what most agents do, which is buy business, and then you got marketing and advertising and all your campaigns and your balloons and your bus benches, and you put all those costs back in, you don't have a chance in heck to make this business work. So here's a thought. Somebody said to me recently, Mike, whenever I have a listing that is going to be overpriced, and I want the listing, but I also know that I can't get my price, I simply say to the seller, remember, if you get a lot of showings with no offers, your property is always overpriced. And if you get no showings, your property is always overpriced. So folks, within a week, whether you believe it or not, we're going to know if your property is overpriced. See, you got to take a stand on pricing. You got to spend the time reviewing the scripts on your trigger cards regarding pricing in our presentation. If you're going to take a listing overpriced, the least you can do to be upfront and honest with yourself is make sure that you sit down with that seller the night you take the listing and say, let's work under the assumption it's not going to sell in the next 30 days, and let's get our price reduction order today. Take a stand. Be strong, be tough, be honest, be prepared, Go in with statistics, understand your costs, and you can price property the right way. I know you can make this happen. Enjoy the experience.